Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Crusader Kings 2 video. Today I'm going to be teaching you about de jure claims and de jure duchies, kingdoms and empires and how the entire system works. So, strap yourselves in, Juggernaut is teaching CK2 again. Alright. So, let's begin with de jure duchies and the concept of a de jure title. So, as you'll find somewhere in the game files, the de jure duchy is the traditional political geographical duchy. What does that mean? Well, it's the way things are supposed to be, quote-unquote. That doesn't necessarily mean much, but in terms of explaining, you will see that works rather well. Even though it might not necessarily be true for, political reasons or whatever. It works as an explanation. You will see why in a bit. So, best to take a duchy, any duchy for example, and show you in practice how this works. So, you have the duchy of the Duchy of Portugal, for example, the Duchy of Galicia. Let's pick a smaller one, simpler, right? So you have the title of Duchy of Galicia, and you have the duchy actually created. You know, they have the jewelry for it, you have the crown for it created, which I'm assuming is what you pay for when you create duchies, and everything's good and fine, right? That's the try again. That's the duchy itself. The de jure duchy is the titles, and more specifically territories, that this duchy is supposed to hold by its name historically. This means that the person that holds the title has a claim on all of the lands that this title is supposed to have. Supposed to have being de jure. Okay? So, if the Duke of Galicia were to have Corona and some other territories, but not Santiago, he would have a claim on Santiago because it belongs to his Duchy of Galicia. Let's see, does it look like that in actual fact? Well, this one does. As you can see, the Duke of Galicia has these two provinces and nothing else. Oh, apart from that one down there. Okay, so it is a good example. De jure is what the Duchy of Galicia is supposed to be, historically and traditionally contains these two. The non-de jure, or actual fact, map mode is somewhat different. This shows the territories owned by the Duke of Galicia. Mind you, this has nothing to do with the title itself. The Duke needs to hold 51% of the title in order to create the title itself. This works for pretty much, by the way, this explanation of the entire de jure system works exactly the same, more or less, for kingdoms and empires later down the line as well. Which we're going to be taking a look at. But for now, duchy is the most important thing to understand first, and then you'll move up along the feudal ladder later down the line. In actual fact, he does hold those two, but he also holds something else. Now, this is practically impossible, but technically speaking, the Duke of Galicia could own the entire world while keeping Galicia his primary title. Obviously, this will create numerous issues, and this is not really, it doesn't really work like that. At one point, he will need to become a king and an emperor in order to own the entire world. But pragmatically speaking, and literally speaking, he could own the entire European continent. The Duchy of Galicia de jure will remain the same. And this is different from de jure empires map mode, and de jure empire system, which we'll take a look at in a bit. But duchies remain traditionally the same. Now, why is that relevant for you? Well, here is my empire. It is the Hungarian Empire. The year is 869, and in the course of some, I don't know, less than 60 years, I've managed to establish it like this. I started off as a tiny little horde up here. Yeah. At any rate, this is it me bragging a little bit. However, this kingdom is not without its problems. I didn't really focus on managing it all too well. I focused on speed and getting a lot of territory. This territory is stable under my rule, however, internally there are some conflicts. Why? Well, part of the reason is the de jure kingdoms and the de jure duchies. So, Let's take a step up and now look at a kingdom. By the way, the exact same again works for duchies and kingdoms. They're pretty much the exact same, except that this is, a tier higher. So, taking a look at the King of Pannonia. He, in actual fact, doesn't own the de jure area of Pannonia. Instead, he owns all of this. He's actually the King of Croatia. That's his primary title, but he owns Pannonia as a kingdom, he owns Croatia as a kingdom, and he owns, I believe, is Poland, or parts of Poland? No? Bohemia? Yes, Bohemia. Poland is a different vassal, yes. He owns Bohemia as a kingdom as well. So he has 3 kingdoms. This is fine. However, he owns, as I said, the Kingdom of Pannonia. The de jure Kingdom of Pannonia is slightly bigger than what he has in actual fact. Why does this matter? Well, essentially because he owns the crown and the title, he has claims over all of this land. But Juggernaut, that's an independent state. That's the Magyar Horde. Yes. Can he use his claims? Absolutely. He is a powerful king. He has 3 kingdoms and, well, a load of land. Most of his vassals are loyal to him. At least I believe so. Yes, most of his vassals are loyal to him. So, he can, in actual fact, attack the Magyars and seize their land. And he did. A couple of these counties he attacked and conquered on his own. All of this stuff up here, my vassals conquered on their own. And the reason is the laws. Well, partially. I'm shifting towards taxation rather than men because I want them to work, things out for themselves, and I'll focus on the bigger wars. Let's take a look at another one. This is Queen Marchala the Wise. She owns the Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica. You see the problem? She owns Sardinia, the bigger island, but Corsica is independent and under a Christian ruler. She has de jure claims on Corsican land. I don't, because I don't own the kingdom. She does. So can she declare war for Corsica? Absolutely. Why is that a problem? Well, it's not if it's an independent kingdom thereafter. However, we take a look at, for example, Bulgaria and the Kingdom of Bulgaria. The de jure Kingdom of Bulgaria is this. In actual fact, Bulgaria looks something along the lines of this. This means that the Bulgarian king really doesn't like the King of Wallachia because he has claims on all of this land. So occasionally, especially if the Bulgarian king gets, well, comes of age first of all, and then gets a little bit stronger and assembles a fine army and a lot of money, he will attack the Wallachian king, which is not that stronger than him in actual fact. So they will fight internally. This is why it's generally considered a good idea to keep your vassals and kingdoms de jure within your empire. This means that this map mode, or if you're a bigger empire, this map mode and this map mode should look relatively the same. Mind you, a king can hold 2 kingdom titles, both de jure, and you won't have any problems with that. This becomes a factor later down the line when vassal limit is a problem, as it's starting to become now. However, what is the difference between a de jure duchy, kingdom, or empire? Well, de jure duchies, like we said, are a constant in the game. They never change. The game can start in the 700s, it can end in the 1400s. They stay the same. Kingdoms tend to shift, which is why occasionally you will see titular kingdoms. I believe I have an example of that, which is why I sort of picked this save file. Here you go. The titular kingdom of Moravia. Why is it titular? Well, it's only a title. As a result, anyone can create it, and it doesn't have any de jure land. Well, how is it a kingdom? Where did it go? Good question. It went to Bohemia and Poland, probably. Kingdoms tend to sort of be a little bit more fluent. I'll give another example. The Kingdom of Bulgaria and all of these territories here. You mouse over them, you'll see that being incorporated de jure into the Empire of Hungary, and being incorporated into the Kingdom of Bavaria. What does that mean? Well, in 100 years, if it stays under the same ruler and under the same primary title, all of this land will become de jure the Kingdom of Bavaria. And, again, in 100 years, if it stays under the same primary title, the Empire of... or if it stays under the same empire as a primary title, in this case the Hungarian Empire, it will become a de jure part of the Hungarian Empire. What is the Hungarian Empire de jure right now? Nothing. As you can see, it is titular. Everything you see, this thing included I believe, eventually will become de jure the Kingdom of Hungary. I promise, because, well, I'm the one playing. It's just going to take a while. As you can see, this used to be, or this is, all part of the de jure of the Byzantine Empire. Eventually, this will shift over to becoming de jure Hungary, or de jure the Hungarian Empire, after 100 years of spending the same... after spending 100 years under the same title. Okay? So, duchies, however, don't have this. Duchies are a constant. Counties, there are no de jure counties because a county is one sort of thing you can click on the map. There we go. It's as simple as that, and yet it's rather complicated. Why? Because this map mode exists. And as you can see, I mean, what is this, Trebizond? Why would you take this? I didn't give you this. You invaded and you took this. And you invaded and you took this, and now it's all messed up. And you, Nicomedia was a damn proud independent, well, not independent, was a damn proud duchy right next to me and right next to my capital. You now messed it up and you invaded it here. Why? I mean, literally nothing other than personal greed, right? And yes, personal greed of your vassals will get in the way of a neatly organized map mode. That's kind of the way things are supposed to be, and you're supposed to react to it. But sometimes it does work out well. For example, Tunis, as you can see, de jure and in actual fact, Tunis is the same. Unless they hold. Is that an island of mine that you hold over there? No. Alright. Well, I believe I have showed you everything there is to show regarding de jure duchies. What about claims? Well, a key point and a key thing to understand is you cannot push claims that exist. For example, there's a reason I declared this war, right? I probably should have paused and then showed you it, but doesn't matter. I think we can find an example somewhere else. King of Trebizond, no. Anatolia? No, there has to be an example somewhere. I think this is a good one. Yeah, I think so. Conquest, I don't actually have a thing for you, do I? Down here. Nope. There, I knew I could find one. Here, for example. The Duchy of Lesser Poland is 2/3 mine, 1/3 Magyar. So, if I want to declare war, I can press a claim for the entire empire because I have one of his relatives in my court, but, you know, also a load of holy wars, invasions, stuff like that. A lot of it is DLC stuff, but there you go, this should seem familiar to everyone. De jure claim. As you can see, I have de jure claims on parts of his empire. Not entirely true. I don't, my vassals do, which is why they're portrayed here. Sometimes you will have personally the claim if you own the duchy that is in question. So if I were the ruler of Lesser Poland directly, then I would be able to push this. this is relevant for CBs, obviously. You have Caus's Bellies on de jure stuff. You cannot mess with de jure claims and pushing de jure wars within your kingdom, though. So, if I say I really don't like this guy, and would like him to sort of give this thing back to Nicomedia, which I kind of do, I can't do much about that. Best I could do is revoke the duchy he holds, and then I suppose give this piece of land to him, and then give the duchy to someone else. So that's one way you could fix the entire situation if you wanted to, but revoking a duchy is usually more trouble than it's worth. And you only really do it in case, or you only really do it in the event that the person you're revoking from really hates you, has betrayed you, or is some extraordinary reason. But with someone that has a positive opinion of me, no. No, you don't really tend to revoke those. And how do you deal with these situations? Well, it's best to sort of just leave them be. Occasionally your vassals will fight among themselves. This is to be expected, this is normal. There we go. I think that's about everything regarding de jure duchies, empires, and kingdoms. Now, I also talked about wars a little bit in the previous video, and I talked about explaining how to fight wars, basically. There is a great video on claims and expanding your territory already, and it's been released yesterday or the day before by someone else on YouTube. So, to make pretty much a carbon copy of that video, which is what I essentially wanted to make, but not even realizing that video existed, up until today, would be a bit, I don't know, not really counterproductive, but it wouldn't be very, I don't know. It would feel a little bit like a waste of time. So instead, you can go ahead and watch that tutorial if you're interested in how to fabricate claims, how to find CBs, how to create CBs for yourselves, and so on and so forth. The video also teaches you about claimants and stuff like that. You can look it up if you're interested in purely getting causes for expansion and actually declaring the war. However, what happens when you actually declare the war? Well, naturally, you raise up your army. You can either do it through these buttons here, or you can go to the direct vassal map mode and individually choose where to raise your vassal's army. So, let's fight one of our wars here, for example, and I'll show you. So there is an invading army here, belonging to what's-his-face. 4,000 men, probably a lot of mercenaries. How do we fight them? Well, we're going to go over to this map mode, and instead of raising our entire vassals, or rather raising all our banners, which is 20,000 men, why not raise a more local, focused force that, you know, can deal with the problem? So we're going to raise men from Nicomedia. You click on one of the provinces, you press C. We're going to raise all these men, right here, and here, let's say, and here. Right, there we go. So, the vassal, or the Duke of Nicomedia, has raised his men in this province. The King of Anatolia raised his men, or the Sultan at this point of Anatolia raised his men in this province, so on and so forth. We now gather all our men, we put them in one giant ball of death, and we march towards the enemy. A ball of death contains 15,000 men. That's acceptable. You want to pay attention to attrition and supply limits. But, that's not entirely relevant at this stage, right? This is the sort of downtime when waging a war. This is the gathering of your men and banners. This is self-explanatory. There is nothing to give advice on here. There is something to give advice, though, on siege and battles themselves. So, my vassals will probably take care of the stuff happening up in north, by the way. Let's gather all our men really quickly and win this war, shall we? Now, because I have such a strong numerical and, well, really strong numerical superiority, I can just walk over and murder the enemy and win the war like that. And then cross over into the island of, what is this? Chios? Yes. You can cross over into that and just win. However, what if it's not so easy? What if it's a difficult war that you need to win? What if it's more equal? What if you can't just walk in with 15,000 men, crush the enemy, getting the Craven trait for some reason, and end the entire conflict like that? Or what if you don't have vassals that are going to pretty much end all rebellions for you and win most of your wars for you without you really interfering? Well, that's a little bit more interesting, and there is stuff to learn, so let's jump into such a scenario. And what better way to show off some strategic brilliance than with the Duke of Normandy and his 12,000 merry men. So, first of all, it's not 12,000 merry men, it's actually a little bit more. Like we said, let's raise all our bannermen and put them together. We are fighting the English. We are fighting King Harold II, soon to be the last Anglo-Saxon English king. So, let's jump all our troops over the Straits of Dover, or the La Manche, or the English Canal, whichever you prefer and however you want to call it, and win ourselves this war. Unless the English come to us first, which is equally, if not even more. Ah. Good. Good, you've decided to murder yourselves by coming to my land. Okay, we'll deal with the preemptive English invasion force, and then we'll deal with the rest. Chase them around a little bit. And the English are gone. So, first of all, when declaring a war, I thoroughly recommend that you take a look at this number here, prior to attacking. So, if I were to attack, for example, the Holy Roman Emperor, I would see that that's a pretty damn bad idea, considering he has 15,000 men, mercenaries excluded, that he could potentially hire, though with 83 ducats unlikely, to my 13,000. Most of these 13,000, by the way, are event-spawned troops, which is basically means the game just gave them to me, they don't come from anywhere, they don't get reinforcements, and when I lose them, they're forever gone. So, let's pick a few ambitions here and there, and really just set up the game and the character for success. Like so. Assign a few titles here and there to keep the vassals happy. And I think we're ready. Alright. Now, as you can see, the English are not really pushovers. They have 5,000 men, I have 12,000. Not necessarily true. They might have some event spawn troops themselves, they might have mercenaries as well. So, let's... And also, they really shouldn't have done that invasion, which they very rarely do. They were stupid, so, you know, they could have had a lot... They could have been a lot closer, essentially, but we still can't throw away this war, and it's not automatically won. For example, as you can see, the Kingdom of Norway is actually attacking the English as well, and the Battle of Stamford Bridge is either about to happen or has happened already. Either way, it's not good. We need to win this war before the King of Norway does, because both of us are fighting for the same thing. The Kingdom of England. The entire kingdom. It's a big thing, right? It's a big and important war, one of the most important ones we're going to have in this game, should we choose to play it to the end. So, we've landed in Kent, and now we're a bit lost and have no idea what to do. Moving all the way deep into English territory is not advisable due to the supply limit, and our men would starve to death. So we need to stick to the coastal areas. You see this button? Don't click it. An assault is good. It's a good way to end the siege quickly, as opposed to dragging it out and starving the enemy. It is good. However, if the fort is well fortified and has a lot of defenders in it, for example, this one is a 4.5 level castle. That's very well defended. Over 1,000 men in it. This is not worthwhile attacking. I would argue that if the fort has over 1,000 men, it's never a good idea to attack it, because you're wasting men at that point. Even if this is the only independent county in the entirety of Europe. it's still not the best idea to attack it and assault it, because you're losing men unnecessarily. Having a lower amount of men, especially event spawn troops, but you know, those are special, increases the likelihood of people joining factions against you and increases their strength compared to you. So their strength is gauged like this. I have 15,000 men. My count has 740 men. He's really weak compared to me and will probably not join factions. If I lose all of my 15,000 men that I have, he's going to have more men than I do. He's suddenly going to demand that things go, you know, his way. So you want to keep a high potential for of an army at all times, and you don't really want to waste men at any point in time. So, do not assault high-level forts. Let's find a lower one, though. Heavy infantry. Let's find a lower one. For example, I think this one here somewhere. No. Here. No. We'll find one eventually. Don't worry. What about battles? Well, this is where I really have some wisdom to shed on the new players, and I talked about the game itself, and I talked about this series. It's aimed at very, very new players, so this becomes obvious after a certain amount of time playing the game, but for new players it is not. So, let me tell you this. The terrain map mode is rather pretty. But it's not utterly useless, as people might. Well, it is, because everything you can see here, you can see in this map mode as well. Here you can sort of visually see it, here you can just read it. What do I mean? Terrain plays a huge, huge role in combat. Why am I attacking the English here, in Wessex? Hell, if the English at this point had 10,000 men in Wessex, I would still attack them. I have good commanders. I have more men. You need to mouse over each and every province where you intend to attack, or you can see it visually if you don't want to read. Attacking in a province like this, where it's just plains, gives, well, no advantage to anyone, neither the attacker nor the defender. However, if I were to fight somewhere in the Alps, for example in Savoy, the defending army would have a massive advantage over me. Point being, try and avoid attacking across huge rivers and onto mountains. Attacking in forests, crossing small rivers, and attacking in the hills and stuff like that is not terrible. You do get a negative modifier of around 10% for most of your men. So, in other words, they get a buff they are 10% more effective. No, it's actually not the way the math works. Your men are 10% less effective than your enemy's men would be. So you do need a numerical advantage. I mean, however, that's pretty much the case for every battle you're ever going to fight. However, it's not a big deal. Attacking over huge rivers, and one specific one comes to mind due to some personal history I have here, for example, Volga and the Don. Attacking over this is a nightmare. Far safer and far better to go around, cross somewhere else, and attack from land and from plains. Or from the forests or hills or whatever, but not across huge rivers. How important is this? And people usually think, oh, it probably doesn't matter too much. With careful planning and consideration, I defeated a 200,000 strong Abbasid invasion force with 50,000 Russians by holding the rivers Don, Volga, and later down the line, Oka and Volga up here. I won that war. So, terrain matters. I'm not saying everyone's going to be able to do that. I was extremely lucky because, you know, it's a huge numerical disadvantage I was at. But you could pull off some miracle victories. Okay? What about amphibious landings? Avoid them as well. Best land next to the province and then attack it. I could put my people aboard these ships and attack Wessex directly from the ships, and there is a sort of amount of shock and awe that you can apply this way. Ships are much faster at moving around than people on foot are, so you can cut off enemy troops with this. But attacking large concentrations of enemies, I would not recommend that. So, we attack the English in Wessex. We defeat them, and we've practically won the war. We attack them again up here in, was it Yorkshire? Wiltshire, yes. Same difference. A lot of their vassals are captured and imprisoned. We cut off the army, reinforcing army at Wessex. And there you go. Really, this would have been a much finer example if they haven't invaded me first over here and ruined all hopes of potentially defending themselves against this invasion, but I mean, what can I say? Don't interrupt the enemy when they're making a mistake. Now, in what situations should you actually assault? Well, right now, Oxford is getting besieged by the Kingdom of Norway, and remember, this is a race. We want to win the war before the King of Norway. You can check the war scores here, and you can check that it's very close. This is a 4.0 level fort, but it only has 800 men in it. That's pretty good, right? Considering the amount of troops I have, and considering that pretty much the entirety of the English army is beaten, I can afford to assault this. But I can do something even better. I can go over to Oxford and beat the Norwegian army. Now here's a good example of a slightly more fair fight. I would be attacking across a river which is between 10 and 15% modifier. Negative modifier for my men. It's not good, but it's not a big deal. I have around 4,000 to 5,000 men more than the King of Norway does, so this should really go my way. Until the English joined him. Did they join him, right? Or someone else did. Okay, run away. At this point, run away. Turns out, Kingdom of Norway, pretty damn strong, pretty damn powerful. Brits haven't won yet. Yep, Stamford Bridge never happened. They still have more men than I do now. Well, now's a good time to begin assaulting the walls. You want to win before they do. So let's cut off some of their men here and attack York. Why? York has been attacked relatively recently and its garrison hasn't replenished yet. Essentially, this means that I can assault it with relatively low casualties. Castle, chapel, the other castle, and the city are all now mine. What has this done? Well, you can see numerically what it's done exactly here. His war score is lowered because he no longer occupies York. Mine has increased because I do. Let's go over to another province like this one. 900 men, not ideal. I'll be honest with you, not ideal. 4.0, 4.5. What the hell, let's do it. Assault. There we go, and we need to find one more. Again, this has over 1,000 men, it's very expensive to attack. Let's not do it. Let's find a less well-defended province, like this one. 800 men. Sounds reasonable. Assault. There we go. We are at 100% war score. Enforce our demand. And there we go. We've won, and we are now the King of England. Of course, there is still the issue of this, and this will need to be dealt with, and this is kind of the reason why I took a few thousand gold and borrowed some money from the Jews, but you know what? Worry not about that right now. Let's go ahead and win this war all the way through properly, shall we? When in doubt, hire mercenaries, yeah? And here, the enemy is sort of making a mistake. He's assaulting Wiltshire. Now, mind you, this is not the most well-defended place in the entire world. However, he is losing men in this assault. And that, as we're about to see, is not something he can afford. 17,000 soldiers, I was going to say Normans, but I mean, more than half of that is mercenaries, so 1,700 men. And, well, the Norwegians are doomed. Boom. And again, not attacking onto a river, attacking from here. Could have landed all my armies there, but that would have been an unnecessary risk. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That's how you win wars in Crusader Kings 2. In every war, you need to adopt sort of that mindset. It's great advice for, I mean, forever. Right? In every single war you're ever going to be in, terrain matters, keep that in mind, and when in doubt, hire mercenaries. What you've now acquired is basically the knowledge to win every war in the game. Now, don't get me wrong, some wars you simply cannot win. For example, the Duke of Brittany with 1,600 men has no bloody chance against the kingdom of, or the emperor even, of the Holy Roman Empire with 13,000 to 15,000 men. In those situations, you simply submit and seek vengeance in different ways. For example, this button here. Or, you know, you seek to demolish the empire from within, if you lose. Don't be afraid to lose. Wars, games, anything. Just don't be afraid to lose, because it's a learning experience. And it's fun. Sometimes it's fun to lose. I often play as a vassal under a kingdom. For example, I've played recently as the Duke of Flanders, under the Kingdom of France, and my goal was to never expand beyond the Duchy of Flanders, but to see France conquer the world. Which is a bit of an extra challenge, but, you know, it's not for everyone, and certainly not for new players, but you will see the charm in it, at one point, I'm sure. At any rate, this is pretty much it for now. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions regarding CK2 in any way, shape, or form about anything, please feel free to ask them down below, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, have fun, take care, and bye-bye.